Hi folks, Captain Mike here. Today we're going to talk about how to fish a boulder field. We're here in Upper Buzzards Bay. This is mid-May, so this is a good time to start thinking about some of the larger fish that come in this time of year. And so as you can see, there's a little bit of a breeze, but it's not too bad. You'll notice a couple of things. As we're on this boulder field, you'll see the wind is sort of pushing down, an onshore wind. And whenever you're fishing structure, I always recommend an onshore wind. Yes, it is more challenging to fish because the boat's getting blown in on the structure, but also the bait and the stripers are getting blown in on the structure as well, and it creates a nice pen of the bait fish for the stripers to sort of ambush their prey. So with that in mind, this is why we're here. Now, a couple things. You'll notice that I have a popper, and I like to start when I approach an area like we just have. I like to start with a noisier plug. This happens to be the Hogy Charter Grade popper, but if it was a little more calm than this, the dog walker would be a good alternative, or any noisy topwater plug. We're going to get up. I'm going to fan cast the structure, and I'm going to cover some ground. I'm going to fan cast it 2 or 3 times. If I get some hits, I'll vector in on that. Nothing, I might switch to a subsurface lure, maybe a swimmer like the Hogy slider, or a weighted soft bait to see if it's a presentation thing. But an area like here in Upper Buzzards Bay, there's rock piles that span a number of miles, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on a spot if I'm not getting any love on the lures. I'm just going to keep moving. And a lot of these fish, they can tend to be resident fish, so if they're holding, but they move around. A spot may have been hit by someone before me, you just don't know. And so what I like to do with structure is have sort of a game plan in mind, just cover a lot of ground. Again, fan cast 2 or 3 times with noisy top water, then go subsurface, nothing, hit the road. And this is a good structure bait or boulders because it replicates pretty much almost anything you can imagine here, whether it's a small sea robin, a juvenile tautog, and those olive hues could also be reminiscent of a back of a pogie. But right now the goal is with this popper is to get a feel if there's any interest or any fish in the area. So dialing in on the color is sort of phase 2 for today. Now, there's 2 ways to fish a popper, fast and slow. You'll notice that I'm fishing it fast today. There is a little bit of a breeze, so to keep the noise alive and make it easier to find the plug, I'm going to keep that plug popping, 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 popping. If it was still water, like super flat calm, that's a situation where I'd pop it, let it pause, pop it, let it pause. But today there's a little bit of turbulence on the water, so I'm going to keep this popper moving. Again, making that pop, 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 pop. So 2 ways, fast and slow. And a little bit of turbulent water like today, I'm going to fish it a little fast. So Captain Dave Peros is at the helm, and he's doing a great job positioning us on the structure. In a situation like this, again with an onshore breeze, it's good to have someone at the helm, and Dave's doing a fantastic job just idling along, helping me span this area. And it's amazing how quickly you can set down on rocks. So it's great to have someone on the helm. And Dave's itching to fish, but he's doing a great job keeping us off the rocks and in the fishing zone, and just going down with the tide. Now, speaking of tide, the tide is heading towards the west, and now we're on the back side of these rocks. So today the game plan is to start sort of all the way out here, and as we work structure, we're going to sort of follow the tide down. Sometimes these fish will just stage down with the tide, and I'm expecting, if we do have action on this rock pile, while it's very possible it would be up front, but it wouldn't surprise me if the action was sort of on the back side of these boulders in the tide. So you'll notice now that we're closer in and on the back side of this boulder field. And so one strategy that I like to employ when possible when fishing structure like this, and this is similar to how I'd fish a jetty or a beach, is I start sort of outside and then work my way in. Actually, it's the inverse to how I fish a beach. I fish close and then out far. But when I'm in a boat, I fish out far and then work my way in close. So not only am I covering the whole span of the area, I'm out front and then on the back side. And so you really want to case the joint here, because these fish can, hole up in a certain thing. Sometimes it's hard to discern what it is that's holding the fish from, above water here. But so we've come all the way around, taking our time to fan cast the whole area, a little bit out front, back in, tight to the rocks, out, down tide, up tide, and just, properly canvassing this area. And then if nothing on top water, we'll take a, maybe a smaller scan with a swimming plug or a weighted top bait before moving on to the next spot. So what we're doing now is we're tucking in really close to the rocks on the back side of the tide. I'm going to fan cast this area to check off, whether I think the action is worth staying here for or moving on. So it's later in the morning. We've hit all our spots. We've decided to shift gears and downsize our tackle, but use the same tactics. So I have my 7-foot striper rod here, light, medium, light tackle action. This is the rod I use also in the fall for albie season, but this is a good outfit for lures, say up to an ounce, maybe if you want to push it, 1.25 ounces. And I have the small size Hogy charter grade popper in light 12-pound test fluoro leader. So we're fishing rock piles the same way as we were earlier this morning, just with smaller, lighter gear. Still relatively early in the season. We're in sort of a cove, in sort of backwater. The water is considerably warmer. We just looked at the fish finder, it's 60 degrees. So this warmer water often has fish that are perhaps more active. Now it's later in the morning, we're in these back coves, we're not expecting huge fish, we're just hoping for some fun topwater action. I'm going to fish the rock piles the same way. Everything's going to be the same other than the fact that I've downsized my gear and I'm targeting smaller fish using the same techniques. Now it's calmed down a little bit too, so what I'm going to do is slow my pop, do the slow pop style. I'm going to pop it, let it sit, pop it, let it sit, pop it, let it sit, pop it. And there we have it. I'm going to call this guy a trophy by any stretch, but still an early season topwater fish. Very ambitious strike on this guy's part. Not a huge fish by any stretch, literally. But, this time of year, topwater fish is a topwater fish after a long winter. I will take this guy and let him go. So we just had a couple of hits and a small fish right on the point of this rock pile here. So we're gonna go make another drift. But you'll notice that we've gone very wide and around. We don't want to create a whole lot of commotion where we're fishing. So Captain Dave has done a nice big wide pass, nice and slow, nice and easy. You don't want to disturb the harmony that's going on here with these fish that are feeding in high light now. So you want to do a very slow, very deliberate approach. You don't want to spook these fish. Oftentimes in fishing rock piles, there's a finite amount of passes you can make before you put the fish down, before they get sensitized to the boat. So anything you can do to offset creating a lot of commotion, definitely it's worth the extra effort. So again, we've done a wide pass. Here we are. We're just close enough where I can reach it with my cast. With the wind behind me, so that's helping. So I'm right out in front of these rocks. This guy feels a little bigger than the first fish. I'm not gonna say it's the next striper world record, but still a great eat. Nice spring, fun topwater action. Working our way up the food chain here a little bit. Gonna spike the rod here. Well, that's pretty much textbook scenario for working boulders. Oftentimes the fish can be much larger, or as we saw earlier today, much smaller. But you know, the name of the game is, you know, long drifts, onshore winds, lots of casts. So I'm going to vary my retrieve speed with this popper between fast and slow. Fast being a consistent retrieve with rod chips. Now again, just to recap, that's going to enable me to cover a lot of ground and create added commotion, as opposed to the slow technique where I'm going to pop it, let it sit, pop it, let it sit, let it sit, pop it, let it sit. Oh, got a hit on that, let it sit. Got him. Yeah, do it that way.